Hello, friends, and welcome to the third episode of Daily EPL Talk. And if you are hangover from the yesterday's Manchester Derby, or let's say the North London Derby on Saturday, hasn't been over yet, I don't blame you guys because for me also it's not over. So I thought, let me share few big questions that came up this weekend. What today's or yesterday's, in fact, by now, Manchester Derby showed us exactly what were the questions that were answered and what were the questions which were unanswered. Can anyone else but Manchester City win the league? Yes, it's a bit complicated to say, but what I mean to say here is that can anyone else but other than Manchester City win the league? And the dilemma of a mid table club. I think this is one of the areas where EPL 24x7 specializes, which is we are the only ones who not just focus on the top clubs, but also we focus on every club because everyone is an equal stakeholder in English Premier League. So we cover all of them. So I want to talk about the dilemma of a mid-table club because I think people say that coaching a top club is difficult. Think about a mid-table club which has multiple things to consider, and that's what we will talk about in this podcast. But let's first get started. And to get started, please hit on the subscribe button. Please like our videos. And if you think there is any content we can share better, would love to hear that as well. Yes, Erling Haaland. But before that, let's start with the game yesterday. I think the game yesterday was really defined by the first minute, the very first minute yellow card that was given to the informed guy. Yes, Diego Dalot. And I think that just simply was probably too harsh to give in the very first minute. I think there are a lot of bigger fouls that get forgiven by the referees when such things happen. So it was harsh. It was, I think that kind of set the backdrop of everything that happened thereafter. The attack, the first goal that came from that side of the pitch. Jack Grealish took advantage of it. Yes, the crispness and the accuracy of the passing was phenomenal. But that really was the time where, the Derby, like, it wasn't a red card kind of decision, which typically has impacted the games this season. But it was definitely the impact very similar to a red card where you just couldn't stop the waves of attack that were coming from City post that. So that was a big thing. If people have got it unnoticed, and Erling Haaland, oh my goodness, I think people don't understand or people just go exaggerate once a team wins about how good the team is and everything and how bad Manchester United is, and we'll talk about that as well. But really, the Norwegian striker is such a key to the everyone in the team flourishing. Like he demands that all the defenders who are defending, they don't come ahead on the high line to attack. They always are defensive, keep their defensive lines because Erling Haaland is always in their minds. So it gives a chance. Like when the defenders are focusing on Erling Haaland, it gives a chance for Foden and Grealish, like we saw yesterday, to actually perform better. So Erling Haaland and the goals that he scored, I mean, phenomenal. Like you couldn't have asked for better goals than that. And the guy is really a genius. The only thing is enjoy his period in Premier League there because I'm sure very soon there will be vultures coming into the Premier League and getting him from Manchester City as well. So unless there is something different which happens where he's winning the Champions League as well as the Premier League, I think you still don't know whether he still wants to try out the new waters. So enjoy him till you can, but he is such a beauty. And then let's talk about the third aspect, which is Manchester United. Now, I know I'll be trolled for this that, well, how can you say this? Manchester United weren't passing well. I totally get that they weren't passing well. And that's why in the halftime, there were changes that were made. Luke Shaw came in later, Malacia went away. But the fact is that the Manchester, keep the passing aside, the kind of runs that the team was making, the kind of what they had in their head. Like if you compare it with Brentford, I totally agree with the manager. If you compare with the Brentford game, I don't think it was similar. I think the key team did try. They did want to win. They did play a good football, but their passing let them down, number one. And it was the, like I said, the early yellow card which really dictated how things should have gone. So that really was my summary of the derby yesterday. Early yellow card, Erling Haaland goals, and then United just weren't as good in the passing, and that let them down yesterday. But the key question really is, can anyone else win the league? Can anybody else do it? I think my answer to that is no, because Manchester City's money plus Pep's coaching makes it completely impossible for. Sorry about that. Yep. So it completely makes it impossible for anyone to actually win the league. And if you think about the comments that came in from Gabriel Jesus I think it was a day back or a few days back. It came up on Friday on ESPN Brazil. He said that he was very happy at Manchester City, but he also accepts that the way Pep and the team wanted him to play, he had issues with that because the way Pep understands football and the way what he wanted, in this case, either you accept it or you don't accept it. And in my case, I did not accept it after a 5 year stint, and I wanted something new and different. And we can really see a very different side of the guy in Arsenal. Like, is this the same guy? Like, the kind of depth he has, we now know that he's a much better player than what he was at Manchester City, and that was partly not because of his own fault. It was mostly because there is a certain way in which Pep wants you to play, and that is something which makes it also impossible because nobody can yet beat the way Pep plays, and that is the only way he knows and he will want his team to play. But the bigger factor, which I think people are not talking about, is the money. 1 billion euros has been spent so far by Pep in every club that he has managed in totality, and mostly he has spent it in defense. And look at the way the defense is. I mean, is it the perfect? No, but it wins him the game. So he knows that if he's not good in defense. So what he focuses on is, if his defense is not leaking goals, the rest of the play will take care of itself. And that is the big thing with Pep. He's spending the money. So when people say that he's as good, I don't consider him as good, because look at the amount of money that he spent over his whole career. He has spent 1.5 billion euros, and I can publish a list of players that he has bought as well. So the key point is, it's his coaching plus the money that he's allowed to spend. Probably no other club will let him spend the kind of money that he's spending, and that is the big reason why he's winning as well. And then they have the Haaland. Now 13 goals through 8 games. Can you believe it? 3 hat tricks, 13 goals. He's the guy who is on fire and looks like he's the boy wonder who nobody else can beat now. He can probably spend an entire season, and you can just go in a wow for every goal that he scores. But the fact is, if this season, I think Manchester City has a chance of winning the Champions League, it's purely because Haaland is there. So yes, with all the things that we just talked about, plus Haaland, who can stop Manchester City? And then Pep's statement is pretty spot on about other PL managers. The other PL managers have to win to stay in the job. He doesn't. He always has that luxury because he keeps winning. He keeps not giving any other club the chance to win titles. Look at what has happened to Liverpool. Despite all the great things that Klopp does, this just cannot be happy because they are not winning the titles, and he just doesn't let it to. And we have seen this era in Sir Alex Ferguson's time as well, where Arsenal, whether it was Arsene Wenger or whether it's Jose Mourinho, because of the fact that Sir Alex Ferguson was so well set out there, you just didn't have a chance to win titles. Here and there, yes, 1 or 2 titles, and that's what used to keep some managers in a extended time, but they all never had a chance. And same thing is now happening with Pep. So when Pep says that they have to keep winning something to remain relevant at the club, that's the challenge that every club manager like Eric Ten Hag or let's say Antonio Conte has. So his statement is pretty spot on about that. And lastly, let's talk about the dilemma of a mid-table club. I personally considered Hugo Lage as a very, very good manager. He's a good Portuguese guy who coached well. And that is where the dilemma of the club stands. The club dilemma doesn't stand with the fact that manager over the course of the seasons, he just became bad. No, it's not because of the manager that a club suddenly became bad. It's because of the club's dilemma. They don't want to spend big. The players keep getting sold for keeping the money flowing, and yet their objectives, is it the objective going to be for the club to remain in Premier League, to remain a mid-table club and not achieve anything year on year? What do they set as themselves as objective? We have seen examples where Roy Hodgson was at a time supposed to keep Crystal Palace in the Premier League, but then the club decided that they need to take a different path, because being in the Premier League every season on is not something which is giving them the right juice. So they wanted somebody who can take them to the next level. So that's the dilemma that every mid-table club has. Wolves has achieved really well. They have qualified for Europe at few times as well. But the question really is, what do they want to achieve? And they can't achieve it. And players are getting sold. Diego Jota, who would have thought that he would have gone to Liverpool? But yes, that's the dilemma that the club has. What objectives do they set? And then the players' dilemma. What are they playing for? What exactly are they trying to achieve? They can't win here and there. They may win a cup, which is also impossible for the last few seasons because of the kind of dominance that City and Liverpool has. So what kind of dilemma the players go through, where they are not achieving anything and yet they are asked to play their 100% every season, every match? And lastly, the coach's dilemma. How does he motivate? Like, that's where I wanted to talk about. How, no matter how good, if you're really good and you motivate your team very well, you just leave. Probably Hugo Sanchez, Lage, not Hugo Sanchez, but Hugo Lage. That was the problem he had. He probably overstayed his time at the Wolves. He achieved things. He should probably have gone at a bigger club in somewhere else. And that's what the mid-table clubs have. Like, then they say you can't retain the coaches. Well, Mauricio Pochettino, look at what happened to him. Brendan Rodgers from Swansea, what happened to him? So all these clubs have got a mid-table dilemma where they can't hold on to their coaches, they can't hold on to their players. The coaches have a dilemma of keeping the players happy, and the club has a dilemma of giving the right objectives. So all in all, it's very difficult. And when people say that Hugo Lage was bad, I don't think he was bad. It's just that he's caught in a mid-table crisis. So that's all for today. How do you like it? Do let us know, and we'll come up with the next video soon. Thank you.